right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the final edition of 2020 Spectrum Cast. We are all here today. Randy, our co-host, Sean Sperry, and Tricia Jang here with us. And what we thought we might do is, rather than, we're coming up on the Christmas holiday, and what we thought we might do is just kind of wind down the Spectrum Cast for modern data protection and just have a little roundtable around what we thought were some of the worst things about 2020. Again, it doesn't have to be data protection related. It can be anything related. And then we'll talk about some of the things we hope to see as we go into the future here. So Sean, why don't I kick it off with you? Tell us, because some of the downsides of 2020 this year when it comes to technology.
Yeah, I mean, for me, working in data protection, it's been the ransomware attacks that I've been seeing and been involved with. We've always had attacks ever since I've been in this business, and I've been in it for quite a while now. But it seems like this year they have become as bad as the pandemic is. I mean, it's just I do not come to work in a day or read a newspaper when I don't see some usually pretty sophisticated organizations, medical organizations, financial institutions, governments, news that some of these have been attacked and now they're trying to recover from ransomware. And the other thing that has changed and I think has grown worse this year is it used to be what we used to refer to as the script kiddies, right? It was some kid in a basement sitting at a computer trying to hack in just for the fun of it. And these days it's not that, right? It is sophisticated groups of criminals who understand,
often state sponsored,
who A, are trying to make money from it or achieve a goal, and B, understand the enterprise class technology that's on the other side of what they're attacking and doing a really, really, really good job of not only attacking just the front end stuff, but even the support infrastructure, attacking everything about it.
Yeah, like when I heard about the monitoring attack that just happened, I was thinking back to your comment last week, Sean, about hardening the backup environment, because once again, that's the centralized location where there's so much information that it's really a critical step to take.
Yeah, one of the more disappointing ones I heard of, Sean, this year was right kind of in the middle of the summer. A cyber attack against a hospital that was going after finding a vaccine in Czechoslovakia. So, I mean, they had no shame and they wouldn't stop anywhere.
Yeah. Well, my state, I live in Louisiana in the United States, and they literally shut down all of the driver's license issuing for the entire state of Louisiana for like 3 weeks. You could not get a driver's license if you wanted a driver's license in Louisiana, and they had to, I think, looking at it from the outside, I wasn't involved, but I think they literally went out and rebuilt everything in the entire state, all of the workstations in the entire state to recover from it.
Wow.
So Steve, what was your biggest disappointment then?
Oh boy, my biggest disappointment. It'll be same space, but different space. I think the biggest disappointment was the inability to travel. Not just travel because of, hey, I want to go out and do things, but travel, being in front of customers, I think makes a big difference. That face-to-face definitely brings a bit of validity to some of the things that you're talking about. And I think in the early on, we did a pretty, it was hard getting used to a lot of the WebEx and getting folks on the phone, and they had their own priorities. I think as we've moved throughout the year, it's been pretty easy. But also I think that whole working from home, and I'm glad to work from home, but I also find going into the office once in a while and being able to share and commiserate stories and get new ideas is really helpful. So that's more from the IBM side, working out the things that I think are important to the things that we do in trying to deliver messages and things that we work on for this particular
2020
space.
2020 in 3 words.
How about you, Tricia?
Well, mine kind of plays off of yours, and mine was really about the failure to develop a tracking app for COVID that went out across the United States. I know some other countries developed their own, but this failure not to have the leadership and the technical savvy to get that out and working and people using it. And I think that then impacts your travel piece right there. If you can't take a, maybe that's just one line of defense, but that would have been really critical.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Mr. Randy?
Boy, it's a big list to choose from. It's hard to narrow it down. So I'm going to go off
2020
script.
has not been a great year.
Yeah, there's just so many to choose from. We have a limited amount of time. So I'm going to go off script and say mine was the horrendous launch of the Sony PS5. It just has been disastrous. My son's a big gamer, and I have spent the last 6 weeks off and on relentlessly trying to get one. I'm happy to say that as of 48 hours ago, I have in fact secured a PS5 console. So
now,
I'm a folk hero.
How much did you have to pay
now.
for it?
Nope, at retail price. I ordered one.
Okay.
So
the question is, when do you get it?
Well, January 9th, according to Walmart, where I actually ordered it from. So, we'll see. So I say that kind of
logistics aren't messed up, then maybe you'll
right.
get that.
Yeah, I say that semi tongue in cheek, but the broader issue, I think, is the pandemic, among the other many horrible things that it has fraught, has been just the whole supply chain infrastructure of the earth is completely disrupted. So supplies of the big toilet paper crisis of 2020, but there are a million examples of that. And the impact on the supply chain and the movement of goods and services and people around the world has been just so massively disrupted at a time when it's so critical that it's been really, really difficult to manage through. And I think that manifests in a million different ways. And we experience it, but it impacts us like literally multiple times every single day. I think that's been the biggest, in my mind, the biggest kind of technology-oriented story of 2020.
How do you spin that? Let's talk about a few of the positives. So I would agree with you. That supply chain thing, it is a big hit to the economy, to how folks do business. If we look going forward, did anything good come out of that? Do we see any new kind of supply chain kind of methodologies or thought processes?
Yeah, so I think we have seen a couple of things that are kind of tangential or collateral benefits, I guess, depending on the industry you're in. I mean, the one obvious thing from my perspective is that we've all, whether we want to or not, we've gotten better at interacting this way, at conducting business virtually and sort of not face to face. And again, I'm with you. I would prefer to sit across the table from a customer and have a meeting, but we've struggled through this year to really hone and refine our ability to communicate effectively using these kind of new tools and technologies. And I think that's a good thing. And I think longer term, that's going to be a good thing because it's going to enable us to expand our reach and do so in a more scalable and cost-effective way. Now, if you're, an airline or a hotel chain, it's not great news. But I think broadly speaking, it's going to enable us to do business more effectively and more cost effectively.
Well, that pulls in what I was going to say as my silver lining for this year. That actually kind of goes against what Steve was saying, and it has to do with how the Zoom calls, how the different opening up of being able to access conferences and so forth online has increased your reach. And the example I saw that was so the one case that I saw that kind of really made me think about this was Dartmouth was talking about the number of people they were able to reach in their college recruiting this year. And because with the colleges going online and having to do everything virtual, you didn't have to drive to the campus to take a tour. There were online tours. There were tons of great online sessions, financial aid, pre-med, whatever you were interested in. And looking at the massive numbers they quoted and how many more people they were able to reach, why can't that also be in business? That could be a positive side of that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, the example of that is, and I think, this is still TBD or to be determined, right? But like next year for the IBM conferences, this year they were all virtual. The hope is next year there will be some hybrid of the two, of both virtual and in person. So you'll be able to go in person and experience it if you want to do it that way. But if for some reason you can't get there in person because of travel costs or commitments, you can also attend virtually and take advantage of it that way. So it's really, the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, and I guess one other thing just kind of popped into my head that's a pretty obvious one, I think, is that the scope and scale and rate at which the pandemic spread really forced a lot of innovation in healthcare and life sciences, and vaccine research is the kind of obvious example of that. This whole messenger RNA model, which was never implemented before at scale, was pressed into action. It's a really innovative way to develop vaccines, and obviously that's going to reap huge benefits into the future, because now we'll be able to react and respond much more efficiently and quickly to emerging threats. Emerging viral threats.
I wanted to say, maybe going back to what Tricia and Sean were saying, I think I'm pretty happy about the level in which the content in which is created today is a step above and a step better. I mean, think about the fact that we've always wanted to probably try to do something like this, even just the Spectrum Cast. And now that we have the time, because we're not sitting on airplanes 100 hours a week, to actually do something like this. So there's an interesting piece of content. In addition, folks that are delivering enablement collateral, or even collateral for things like you said, Tricia, for schools, I think you tend to take a little bit more time, put a little bit more thought into it. What is the actual message? How is it being communicated? And is it being delivered in locations where it can be picked up and used appropriately? And I think we've kind of broke through a lot of the hurdles and the barriers around that.
Yeah, I would agree. And one other kind of interesting one, Steve, you and I have talked about this before, is given all the uncertainty, economic uncertainty, in addition to kind of health and public health uncertainty worldwide during 2020, has been the technology sector, while it has by and large weathered the storm pretty well and added value in terms of supporting research and advanced supply chain, changes and so forth. There's also a lot of investment dollars sitting on the sidelines. So I think you're going to see, as 2021 rolls in, it's going to be an explosive year for innovation and investment, because there's a lot of VC money, again, kind of sitting on the bench, ready to make an impact. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. There's going to be a lot of big, I think there's going to be a lot of big investments and announcements and new startups that are going to come on the scene. They're doing really kind of interesting things. And I think they're going to be really well funded and be able to grow very rapidly, because there's just all this pent up demand and latent demand for both technology and investment. So.
Well, we also had that whole jump start of, like in the medical sector, of them being very cautious about doing online meet and greets with your doctor, or making everything else automatically online, all your records. But this kind of pushed that industry into being jump starting into that. So like you said, Randy, that should be a great opening for further innovation and further investment.
I wonder on that whole supply chain comment, Randy, how some of the VCs are going to look at maybe investing in that. I look at what Amazon did over the course of 2020. It's just mind blowing. It's amazing, right? And I think a lot of people who want to, I want to say a lot of suppliers who want to keep pace with things like that are going to need to be able to kind of step up and do those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, the whole environment we're operating in this year has been a unwanted but sort of unavoidable forcing function that's kind of making businesses rethink the way they conduct business. And earlier in the year, I remember we talked about examples of like restaurants that suddenly had to figure out ways to implement durable, reliable, scalable, ordering systems for curbside delivery or, DoorDash or whatever. Grubhub, and et cetera. Obviously those businesses are skyrocketing too. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's kind of forced innovation, which, we certainly would never want to do it again. But I think the fact that our industry in particular has been able to react and respond in ways that have added value that will live beyond, the pandemic. And I think that's a positive I think we can take from it. And, we've all been able to participate in that, which I think is pretty exciting. Again, I never want this to happen again because it sucked, but we have at least had an opportunity to participate in some of the positive things that I think will come out of it.
So Sean, closing words for 2020, and we'll fire this podcast back up in January of 2021. This is the last one of 2020. What do you want to leave everyone with?
Well, just to play off of what Randy said, change is a good thing, right? The trend is your friend. So, in 2021, I'm going with the flow, and as things change, I'm going to try to adopt and do things better and make the world a better place.
Tricia?
Can't
beat that one, can you?
Leave it at that. That was great.
Yes. Drop the mic. You're done. I we just have to say good riddance to 2020 and let's look forward.
Steve, do you have closing remarks?
Well, but we said, Tricia, you didn't have anything to say. No, I wanted to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thanks to the folks that have sent us a few comments and about things they want to see on the podcast. It's really appreciative. And we're looking forward to doing this and delivering better and more quality content in 2021. And I thank you. Oh, of course. Hold on.